Hello and welcome to Moderate Fantasy Violence, a podcast about pop culture and the world around it. I'm Alistair.
And I'm Nick.
And in a change to the advertised programme, today we will be discussing The Drama, the new black comedy wedding drama starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, and then Small Profits, a new BBC drama from the creators of Detectorists. But before all of that, Nick, do you have something to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I don't want to excite anybody, but I'm about to discuss one of the big talking point water cooler dramas of the last 10 years, for I have finally seen the whole thing. It is Stranger Things, the Netflix nostalgia, fantasy, horror, Dungeons and Dragons series about a group of kids in the small town of Hawkins who find themselves, for some reason, the only line of defence against an invasion of demons from another dimension, with the help of their new friend Elle, a young girl they find in the forest. And, this has, of course, been going on Netflix for quite a while. I remember watching the first season of this back when streaming TV was still vaguely new and exciting. At the usual blistering rate of production. It's taken them, I think, probably about 10, 11 years to do for their 5 seasons, he says, Googling the exact year that Stranger Things started, but I'm pretty sure it's been, if not a decade, then the best part of a decade.
It seems like about that long, because we covered the first season on the podcast, and that seemed like a while ago.
Yes, I have now confirmed it has in fact been just short of a decade. Episode 1 was released in July 2016, so there we are. So they've just about made it inside 10 years.
Yes, I seem to remember we did cover it on the podcast, but it was back when we were doing 4 items an episode. Yeah, that was definitely a long time ago.
Yeah, you've not kept up with this, have you?
No, it's one of those things that, like, I watched the first season, and then I sort of, like, fell out. Well, I said fell out of it, like, I just didn't really, like, watch any others because I wasn't, like, super gripped by it. And as it became more of a cultural phenomenon, I kept feeling, I should catch up with this. People seem to really like it. But then after a while, there was just so much of it that I thought, like, well, I'd rather just watch something new. It's all on Netflix, obviously. You might dive into it at some point. I guess, do you recommend it as a complete endeavour? Does it, like, build to a good ending?
It's alright. I've covered Stranger Things before in this section, because I've now seen all the seasons, and my lingering hot take has always been that, it's normally quite fun while you're watching it, but it just doesn't really have any lingering cultural impact. It's similar to what everyone always says about Avatar, I just don't care. If you ask me in a month or two's time, once I've got a bit of distance from watching it, see how many Stranger Things characters I can name. But it's alright, it's fun. Whenever a new season comes out, I always put it off for ages, just not caring that much, and then I eventually get around to watching it, and then I think, oh yeah, that's actually quite good, that's actually quite fun, fair enough, I don't regret watching that. Still don't care a huge amount now that I've finished, but I don't regret it. And season 5, for the most part, went in a similar way, although I do actually think it's one of the weaker seasons. I did actually go into this with lowered expectations, because the internet has been absolutely just wailing on this ever since it came out. So I did go in expecting proper rubbish, and was rewarded with merely mediocre okayness, for the most part. It gets off to a solid start. The first 4-ish episodes are actually pretty good, in the same way that I just said. It's fun, it's not life-changing, but it rattles along, it's got a lot of nicely staged action bits, and the characters are distinct and have fun little moments with each other. They've got a good eye for sort of big, soaring, Spielbergian emotion, and yeah, it's fine. I think it gets a bit, it vanishes a bit, possibly up its own mythology in the 4 episodes after that, to be honest. I think it kind of goes down the trap that some of these shows sometimes fall into, where a lot of the appeal is that it's a sort of charming urban fantasy about people battling monsters inside their homes. And for the finale, they have them travel to the demon dimension and battle big monsters in a CGI desert, and it just doesn't have the same charm. Is, I feel, for me, one of the big problems with the final chunk of Stranger Things, the last 4 episodes where they have their big final battle.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate that it ends. I mean, I assume the ending isn't as bad as, say, the ending of Game of Thrones, which also the internet ragged on pretty heavily, justifiably, as it kind of, especially the last 3 episodes, really went off the boil.
I don't think so, no. It doesn't feel rushed in the same way that Game of Thrones did. It doesn't feel like they just want to get it over with. Famously, very long episodes, Stranger Things. One can very rarely accuse it of being rushed. Yeah. It does inevitably have what feels like about 30-40 minutes of solid epilogue to its 2-hour final episode. There's definitely not that sense of rushing. The actual last scene, the very final scene of the final episode, is the correct, good, well-pitched final scene for Stranger Things. They did nail the final scene. So, they got the broad strokes of the ending, I think, right. It's just, I don't know, as I say, I don't find them running around CGI landscapes as fun.
Yeah, and you do have these absolutely epic run times, sort of longer than most films, 2.5 hours or something.
That came to its peak in season 4, I think, which did have multiple episodes which were feature film length. Season 5, perhaps, was everyone kept making fun of them. They have reined that in a little bit. Most of the episodes are between 60 and 70 minutes. There's one episode in the middle, which is sort of the end of the opening section, which is just about an hour and a half. And then there's the finale, which is a 2-hour monster. But the rest of them are just about within the TV episode spectrum.
All right, at least they reined that in a bit. One thing I seem to remember you saying when we discussed Stranger Things previously on the podcast is that they have like this sort of ballooning cast of characters, and that like they keep like adding more characters and like keeping up with all the old characters, and which is why it's sort of become this sort of sprawling epic. Do they hone it down at the end to focus more on core characters, or do they still have like...
Very slightly. So really, no, not particularly. There's a couple of characters from season 4 who have been allowed to get quietly dropped, but they were pretty minor, I think. Basically, everyone who was even vaguely memorable is back. A character from season 2 who hasn't been seen since season 2 reappears. A couple of new people are introduced. One of the reasons why the epilogue is so endless is because they feel the need to square away every character one at a time. And on the one hand, again, they've got a decent grasp of sort of emotion. Most of the endings to the characters feel nice and sweet and fitting, but Jesus Christ, it takes a while, all that admin.
Again, it looks like they haven't dealt with the problem of those sort of ballooning cast of characters.
Well, they finished the show, that'll take care of it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose there's that, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, because they love their massive cast of characters so much, I guess mild anti-spoiler for the final season of Stranger Things. Really not much of a big death in the final season. Really, no one enormously significant dies. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but it's been 3 or 4 months since it aired. I'm sort of assuming that the passionate fans among you have seen it, and the mid-level fans will probably have forgotten I said this by the time they watch it.
Yeah, so no noble sacrifices or anything at the end?
No, I mean, they tease it quite a lot, but no, they don't have to follow through.
Well, I guess maybe it's to do with the tone, because, yeah, as you said, it's Spielbergian, and that's sort of what it reminded me of when I saw the first season. It had a sort of vaguely E.T., vaguely Close Encounters, 80s kids' adventure sort of thing going on. Probably the show is actually more aimed at grown-ups, but people who've got nostalgia for those kind of TV shows and films. So do they maintain that consistent tone throughout?
Yeah, almost to a fault. They're still doing that. It's all about nostalgia for your childhood, even though we have reached a point where most of those kids are, I think, in their mid-20s. And are just being heavily dressed down for the show.
Yeah, I guess so, because it took them like 10 years to make.
Yeah, I don't think it's meant to have been 10 years for the kids. They're just graduating from high school, as they do in America, at the end of the final season. Yeah, there's some nice sort of YA coming-of-age moments, and they do remember what kind of story it is. Some of the characters, the many characters, do feel a bit like they're just sort of hanging around, having had most of their story beats, but, a couple have some nice final cathartic moments. One of the characters comes out, which has been sort of teased heavily over the course of the last couple of seasons. It is quite nice and quite affecting and handled quite well in the bits it's in, but others just do not get a storyline.
All right, okay. Sounds like overall they largely succeeded with their ending, if not...
I mean, maybe I'm coming down broadly on the positive side because I am not that attached to it. I mean, I don't hate it or hate watch it or anything, but I'm not that bothered. I'm not a fan. Wasn't there was some sort of Stranger Things fan conspiracy theory where they became convinced the ending wasn't really the ending and a secret real finale would be released a week or two later? Inevitably, this didn't happen, and never mind. Maybe if I was a bigger, harder or something fan of Stranger Things, I would have been more angered by this really alright finale, but it was alright. At least they didn't, fuck it completely.
So you get the feeling a lot of people are quite disappointed with how it ended.
I think there was disappointment, but it wasn't better and more amazing, because this is probably among the sort of weaker seasons of Stranger Things all in. It's still not, in my opinion, awful, but it is definitely closer to, it was okay, than actually good.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've said in this podcast is that endings are some of the hardest things to do, especially these big, epic stories. In that beginnings, there's a challenge to, an attention-grabbing beginning, putting some stuff out there that's intriguing, but, actually paying things off can be really difficult, which is why a lot of these shows that are great, especially in their midsection, when, you're into them and you're, really immersed in the story and you know the characters and there's some good drama, but then they've got we have to tie all this up at some point. That's the difficult part, and a lot of shows come unstuck at that point. I mean, some really badly. Game of Thrones, Umbrella Academy are ones that spring to mind.
I mean, we're not reviewing Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones at least had an idea for its ending. It just did it really badly. Whereas Stranger Things, if anything, just didn't seem to have an amazing idea for an ending. It's just they go into the demon dimension, they find the big monster, they kill the big monster. That's it, really. I wasn't attached enough, or I don't know, I guess I didn't hate the big monster enough for that alone to feel cathartic, so it just kind of happened. There wasn't really a big character moment or sacrifice or anything like that.
Yes.
Which is what you need to make these things matter, I guess. They didn't really, as we've said before many times, going back to the beginning of the podcast, ideally you sort of go big and then go small or something like that. And to be honest, I think I can see them sort of trying to do that, in that they fight a big beastie and then a small little bloke beastie. But the stakes never go small enough for it to feel like it matters.
Yeah,
as much.
focus in on like some core drama, like your central characters overcoming something important. Like as people point out, some of those films that people keep coming back to again and again that are really captivating, especially like action type things like Die Hard. It comes down to just John McClane versus Hans Gruber at the end on like the roof of the building, him trying to save his wife. And again, the Predator at the end, it's just Arnie and the Predator in like in the forest. You need to like focus down your ending to like the core elements and the core bits of drama, the big thing that you're supposed to be like paying off right from the beginning.
Yeah, and Stranger Things are so scattered and has gone on for so long that there isn't that much left to pay off.
Yeah.
Also, because of the way they've got their superpowers working, a lot of the combat in the final episode is what I believe we've described before as X-Men Psychic Powers combat, where people just do really constipated faces and wave their hands at each other. And I don't know, whoever can look the most constipated wins. It's not the most visually thrilling thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we definitely talked about that before. Yeah, this psychic battle thing there.
Yeah, it's one of these things that sounds cool in theory and can sometimes look cool if you've... especially in comics where you can draw like properly weird psychedelic landscapes, but sometimes in fairly mainstream TV shows when it's just some people waving and some sort of general special effects, it's just not that thrilling.
Yeah, it also can work in novels quite well when it's just really good at like dramatizing the internal state of a character. Like novels are the best medium. Usually, obviously there's a lot of bad novels out there for like taking you inside the mind of someone. So if you're doing some kind of like psychic duel thing, then you can like at least go inside the mind of the character. But like TV shows and films are better for like environmental conflict, big conflict that you can like see visually. But obviously if it's something inside someone's head, then sometimes it just boils down to people making constipated faces, as you say.
Yeah, exactly. You need either some sort of actual like choreographed combat with movement or emotional combat, I don't know, emotional payoff with like big acting, and just standing there and shaking is neither. So yeah, there we go. I saw Stranger Things. It was fine.
I might watch it at some point.
I would not break your body to do so.
No, this is not encouraging me to go and dive into the vast quantity of Stranger Things I've not seen.
Sorry, fans. I could have evangelised that harder. Never mind. Alistair, what have you been watching?
I went to see a film that has been very well received. It's interesting that this one has like seemed to become the talk of the town, at least for now. I suppose it is like a high-profile Hollywood movie based on a successful book, so maybe it's not that surprising, to be honest. But I've been to see Project Hail Mary.
Hey.
Which is very good.
Yeah, I have not seen this, but would quite like to, as it does, as you say, seem to be really buzzing up my social media timelines.
Yeah, I'd recommend going and seeing it, especially before you get spoiled too much. I'm going to endeavour to not spoil it too much.
I was going to say, could you then therefore not do it in this review? Yeah, cheers, thanks.
Just please see it in the next 30 seconds, because the spoilers are going to start coming.
Yeah, it's only 30 seconds long, right?
Yeah, something like that. Just watch it on really like fast. No, it is not 30 seconds. It is a good solid like over 2 hours, but it is very good. I read the book quite a while ago, and the book's really, really good. And when I heard they were making a film, I was a bit like, this is one of the ones that could really go either way. Yeah, it could really work because the book's got a great tone that they have successfully translated really well into the film. It's written by Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, so obviously there's a good film of that as well. And yeah, he's, for those who know his prose writing, he's really good at writing sort of quite jolly, upbeat, can-do sort of characters who get stuck into solving scientific problems.
Yeah, I've read The Martian and seen the film of The Martian, and I don't know that much about Project Hail Mary, deliberately, but the discourse I've seen is that this is not an actual sequel, but a sort of thematic follow-up or something to The Martian, a sort of, if you liked The Martian, here is more in that vague vein.
Yeah, sometimes referred to in the film world as a follow-on. So, for example, like Snatch and Lock, Stock. You know, Snatch is not a sequel to Lock, Stock. It's just a film with a lot of the same actors and the same director and the same writer and in the same sort of style and the same tone. So basically, yeah, it's a kind of classic. Here's a second serving that's not a direct sequel.
Yeah.
And that's what you get here. Basically, you got another story about a scientist, in space solving science problems. He's got a very positive, get stuck in, can-do attitude, written in the first person with, so you go inside his head and he's just a kind of nice person to spend 300 pages with or 2 hours because he's just like a nice guy trying to like save the world. I mean, the big difference here between The Martian is, in The Martian, he's just trying to save himself because he's been abandoned on Mars. This is Project Hail Mary. They need to save the whole world because the sun is slowly going out. They've launched this mission to a nearby star system where this problem isn't happening to find out why. I mean, there's more to it than that, but as I say, we're going to avoid spoilers for now.
This is more consideration than I showed for Stranger Things fans.
Fair enough. But I suppose, as we said, endings you need to discuss details, because that's the thing about endings. They're difficult and complicated. I'm going to not talk about the ending of Project Hail Mary, partly because the ending is really, really good and one of the appeals of it, and they nailed the ending of the book. What I'm going to say is that, as well as they got the tone from the book really well into the film, they made a few structural changes, which actually I think really benefit from turning this into a film. The book does have quite a lot of bits of him doing extended monologues about the science he's doing and the different experiments and stuff he does at different points. And although there is a lot of montages of him doing sciencey bits in the film, they have successfully realised that a lot of the time they kind of skip quite quickly to the emotional implications or plot implications of what he's discovered, which I think works quite well for a mainstream audience. I think there are some people who really like the book who just wanted more, just this dude doing some science in space. But yeah, I kind of think it works better as a film that they sort of jumped straight to the impact for the characters and plot for a lot of the science bits.
Yeah, I can imagine Ryan Gosling working quite well as that sort of likeable guy who just wants to save the world and help out. He's got that vibe. Well, to be fair, he's played some quite dark, ambiguous characters in his time, but I can imagine him quite easily playing a likeable bloke.
Yeah, he's a really good Hollywood star in that, he can sort of do a range of characters really, really well. He's a good actor. He's good at this sort of upbeat, very likeable kind of everyman sort of guy. A high school science teacher beloved by his pupils who ends up being called on to save the world. That whole element of it is really good. He is the star in the sense of he's in basically pretty much every single scene, and large amounts of it are him by himself in space. So you need to really nail the casting for that. But yeah, a lot of the success of the film does come down to how well Ryan Gosling plays the character, partly because they've translated the tone from the book really well into scripts and and things like that, but it obviously is reliant on someone to actually bring it all to life, and Ryan Gosling is good at that.
As I say, I know very little about this plot of this intentionally, but yeah, having heard the sort of parts the lead is and the sorts of character story, it did sound like a very good part for Ryan Gosling, yeah.
This is the bit where we might have to be careful what we say about spoilers. Obviously not going to discuss the ending of the film. I'm going to discuss the middle in possibly slightly guarded tones. For anyone who's read the book, they'll be aware that, there is another core character as well as the Ryan Gosling character who is, an essential part of the appeal of the book and a character that a lot of people really like. And I just want to say that character is also done really, really well in the film. Again, there's a lot of good characterization, and they made some interesting, bold choices in things like production design and stuff that I think really pay off. If you're worried about that aspect and have read the book, because it was something I was worried about, and I was like, ooh, this could end up being weirdly uncanny or something like that, but actually it does work, so rest assured, book fans, it's worth seeing.
Yeah, one of my friends was saying the other day that this is one of his favourite books ever, and he's read it a few times, and yeah, I'm glad it will hopefully not disappointing. I should probably read the book as well. I did enjoy The Martian.
There's quite a few people I know who've seen the film and are now reading the book. It's very similar, the plot. In fact, it's almost exactly the same. So if you just want more of the tone and a bit more of the science, then yeah, read the book. I must say that basically, as I was watching the film, was they have just basically taken all the best bits of the book. They just kind of jump from, oh, that's a good scene, that's a good scene, that's a good scene, that's a good scene. And then afterwards I was thinking oh yeah, they didn't do that. Oh yeah, but that bit's not as good. So they do very much do a tour of some of the best bits.
Do you have strong feelings about whether I should read the book or see the film first?
I reckon see the film. I would say go see the film because the film's out now and there's a lot of buzz around it. So go be a part of the buzz, be a part of this moment. Unless you can read the book in a day and then see the film tomorrow, which some people can, my partner included.
No, I have to go to work.
Yeah, sadly. Yeah, so I'd recommend go see the film soon to be part of the moment, and also go see the film before too much is spoiled, specifically the ending, because it is a good ending. It probably is better if you don't know what's coming. So yeah, I'd recommend go see it, as we're probably still slightly in the grace period when it's not socially acceptable to just blast spoilers all over the internet, but that grace period will come to an end. And if you really, really like the film, then read the book. They are extremely cinema.
This film is extremely cinema.
I think we said something like that before. Yeah, they are similar. So if you really love the film, then you can read the book and you can get more of that tone, especially if you liked The Martian. Yeah, I'd recommend go see the film. It's got all the best bits in it.
Okay, and now we are going to talk about the drama. This is, of course, the new movie from director Christopher Borgley, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson as an engaged couple who are very much in love, but a mere few days, I think about a week or so before their wedding, everything is thrown into turmoil when one of them discovers a dark secret from the other's past. And then, yes, dark comedy ensues. We have seen this film. Alistair, what did you think of it?
I thought it was brilliant and I really enjoyed it. It's very much my sense of humour. It really is quite dark in places, but also it's got that social awkwardness, bit Peep Show, a bit Alan Partridge. I mean, it's kind of strange because in some ways it's really not like those, partly because those two things are very British and this is quite American. And there is a big tonal sort of difference in that this is more of a drama, I suppose, and less of ridiculous characters being ridiculous. But it does have that element of like, I can't believe someone just did that in public, or I can't believe someone just came out and said that to someone else without thinking about it, which is like sort of mortifying but in a hilarious way. And I really like that tone and that kind of humour, and this is really well observed and really well done. It's one of those things that like pretty much as soon as I walked out of the cinema, I texted my partner saying like, that is brilliant. This is a really good film. Do not go see it. You would hate every second of it because you really cannot stand anything in that kind of socially awkward vein. But if you like that kind of humour, this is really, really good.
Yeah, there's definitely a hint of Peep Show in there. I think that, I mean, maybe I'm imagining it. I think they are managing to work a bit with a sort of British awkwardness energy by the fact that Pattinson is actually playing a British man here. He's not doing an accent. Well, maybe he's doing an accent, I don't know, but he's not pretending to be American. So they are, I think, working a bit with that sort of repressed British vibe with, his character Charlie really feeling the pressure to just keep calm and carry on as everything just gets increasingly awkward and weird around him.
Yeah, that is very much the case, yeah. They are bringing that vibe to it.
Yeah, that's quite funny, yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll see how far we can get without actually spoiling the dark secret that is revealed in the film, because on some level it seems a shame, on the other it's quite hard to review it without mentioning it, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dark secret is about something quite dark anyway. She didn't just, bully someone or lock a child in a cupboard to use some of the other less bad dark secrets in the film as examples. She did something which is on the proper dark, proper grim spectrum. And then there are lots and lots of, just as Alistair said, awkward, uncomfortable moments as people fall over themselves trying to talk about this in a sort of polite, upper middle class social way. And therein lies much of the comedy, along with a series of ridiculous escalating fantasies and flashbacks and scenes that could be either fantasies or flashbacks, as I think mostly the idea is this is mostly from the Pattinson character's perspective, because, I guess I'll spoil that it's Zendaya's character, Emma, who has the secret, and it's Pattinson struggling to cope with it. And, a lot of it is, I think, from his perspective as he slowly drives himself mad.
Yeah, I do like the ambiguity of it as well, and that you see these flashbacks and various scenes, and there's a lot of how much of this is what really happened, how much of it is people imagining what happened. Some of the bits clearly are painted as no, this is someone's paranoid fantasy, but then some of it is just kind of left sort of ambiguous, which leads you to think how bad was it in reality. But I suppose it's more the idea itself is kind of in some cases worse than the reality. Again, we're sort of dancing around spoilers, but actually I didn't know kind of what the sort of meat of the drama is, and that again was probably one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this film. I kind of knew basically it's about a wedding that goes wrong, and I actually thought most of the film would be set over the wedding itself, and the wedding is really very much Act 3 of the film, and I really thought it would be the film would open maybe with a bit of preamble, but then before long it'd be the day of the wedding, or or the night before. But really most of it is actually all about the process of getting ready for the wedding, the wedmen and all that, and they have to do, and then the wedding itself is Act 3. And I didn't know, I knew there was going to be basically characters falling out, things going wrong, that kind of drama, but I didn't know kind of what shape that would take. So I really benefited from going in not knowing this, which is why we're maybe talking quite a cagey way about it. But one of the things I did really like is that you think it's one scene of people being awkward, confessing something that they shouldn't confess, and you think oh, that's a bit dark. And then I didn't realize after a bit oh, this is the whole film's going to be shaped around this. That I thought was quite interesting, because you think it's just oh, it's just another scene of these slightly awkward characters having an awkward interaction, and it would just get back to more focus on the wedding, and then it's oh no, it's going to zoom in on this specific element, which I thought again was quite interesting, because I didn't even expect that as it was unfolding, which I suppose in some ways is true to life, in that some moments are just awkward and they're gone, and then some moments change things forever, and you don't know when you're in a life-changing moment that it is life-changing, usually. So in that way it's kind of reflective reality.
Well, yeah, it does a good job of setting up their relationship as a fairly sort of nice, idyllic relationship in the first, 10 minutes of the film. And then, throws this bomb into it, and then there's just, long, slow scenes of them, of Pattinson especially, trying to come to terms with it and often failing. And also a lot of fun scenes where they have to sort of, in the midst of all this, continue going along with the sort of the big, over-the-top cheerfulness and pomp and circumstance of organising their wedding, and dealing with incredibly, professionally upbeat people here to talk to them about the best day of their lives, while they both stand there looking absolutely harrowed. That by itself itself is also quite funny.
Yeah, it's really good, like, sort of study and, like, the minutiae of, like, human interaction and things like that. The way it's written is, like, very detailed. There are, like, quite a lot of long scenes that are, like, really specific. I mean, it must have been, like, God, how many, like, takes and stuff they must have done, or how much rehearsing to make it, like, really, really, like, nail the sort of this really specific vibe. They must have, you know, it's really well crafted. I mean, Robert Pattinson and Zendaya are really talented and they work really well together. That's kind of what makes it work. Like, for example, there's a scene when they're having, like, they meet the photographer for the wedding, and yeah, they're having sort of some practice pictures taken for the day, and, like, you know, they're kind of smiling and looking natural, but also they're kind of looking horrified and, like, really disturbed. But, like, it's really hard to describe, but they've managed to perfectly capture what it looks like when someone's pretending to be happy but really isn't. But obviously, a lot of the time when someone's pretending to be happy, they just look like they're happy. I don't know, like, how many takes they must have done to get the exact right smile that looks fake but also looks real without it being, like, clownish. There's a lot of little, like, tonal bits like that really, really work, but it's a hard thing to get right, performance-wise. Again, it's one of the reasons why the film's so good, but, like, yeah, it's a lot of work must have gone into, I feel, like, rehearsing and just really, like, nailing those tonal moments.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very much their film, I guess. I mean, other characters are in it. Alana Haim pops up again in a fun supporting part. There's a few other characters who have decent-sized roles, but it's very much the Pattinson and Zendaya show, and yeah, as you say, they are really, really good. They have great chemistry, and they're just very charismatic and easy to watch. I guess they are two of our big sort of current youngish actors, and yeah, this is a good vehicle for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
As Pattinson continues to try and find a way to have a career in mainstream movies without doing too many blockbusters.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But we're also doing what Daniel Radcliffe and Elijah Wood did after their gargantuan blockbuster career, which is only do really, really weird things. So, yeah.
I mean, I get the feeling there was a period where he was trying to do that, but he seems to have decided to try and soften his line a little bit on the weirdness and nicheness of the films he's willing to do. But he clearly doesn't want to go back entirely to just doing mainstream action films.
Yeah, well, he was going to be in The Souvenir Part 2, which would be very much going off into the deep end of independent film. I mean, Souvenir Part 2 is a great film, and he'd probably have been very good at it. But yeah, that's sort of something, him flirting with the very strange end of indie cinema.
Well, yeah, but then again, he's also the current Batman, and I gather he's in June this year, so...
Yes, you know. Exactly, yeah. So, like, he's not sort of, like, big franchise, chunky roles as well.
But clearly he's only determined to keep doing this sort of thing.
Yeah. But I feel this is, like, pitched, like, really well at a kind of level of, like, it's, you know, on the borderline between mainstream and independent cinema, in that, like, yeah, it's not like a big Hollywood thing in that it doesn't deal in, like, broad emotional sweeps. It's not a rom-com, you know, in that sense of, like, conventional tones and humour. Like I say, a lot of people really won't like this. They'll find it too awkward, they'll find it too dark, or just, like, too subtle and, like, maybe even a bit dull. Although it is quite tight, like 90 minutes, which also really works as well. But also at the same time, it's like, it's got mainstream stars in it. It's quite accessible in the sense of, like, you know, it's about a wedding that, like, everyone's gone through that and pressures on a relationship. It's got a fairly standard Hollywood structure to the story, unlike, say, something like The Souvenir that really doesn't. It's clearly, like, pitched at people who are interested in cinema and like different and better films. It's an A24 film, but not like the really, like, crazy end of the spectrum. I mean, it's certainly been popular. Like, we went to a mid-afternoon screening on Good Friday and it was pretty densely sold out. I looked around and a lot of couples in there, and I was like, hopefully this film doesn't ruin too many relationships.
I mean, I'm getting married in like 2 months. It was in some ways a weird choice, but if nothing else, it has come away thinking, okay, let's maybe skip the what's the worst thing you've ever done game in the 2 months I have left before the wedding. Let's maybe leave that till the latter half of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if that's a takeaway from it, is just like, yeah, have something prepared if someone ever asks you what's the worst thing you've ever done that is...
Okay, actually, now you mentioned it. Sorry, I did actually eat the last slice of bread this morning. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was so inconsiderate. So considerate. I really would strongly recommend this. Probably could be like one of the best things I've seen so far this year. Partly because a lot of the big Oscar films actually came out last year, so I guess they were not eligible for the best of 2026. But also with like this and Project Hail Mary to a degree, and the Oscars being over, I do feel like we're properly into the meat and potatoes of 2026 as a year. And like this is something that really wasn't on my radar beforehand. I mean, maybe I should just be more aware, because obviously a film starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson was probably going to be big. But I like the fact this kind of came out a bit of left field and is basically being like, oh yeah, this is really, really good. And I guess because it really suits my style and tone that I like.
Yeah, I think, as you were saying about A24, they make a lot of these sort of cool, high-concept films, which are very interesting and always have a very strong aesthetic and usually a good marketing hook as well. Sometimes they are then let down by the fact that the film itself isn't very good. I was vaguely interested by, what was it, something about a unicorn a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
By all accounts, that was not one of the better ones. But yeah, for whatever it's worth, this is a decent A24 film. In fact, it's actually a good A24 film. I'll not moderate my language for once. Yeah, no, as Alistair said, this film was really good. If you're down with your dark humour, it's good.
It does have, as you say, like an aesthetic running through it, which I thought was good as well, but like not quite as like aesthetic-y aesthetic, to coin a phrase, as say like Everything Everywhere All at Once. But what I kind of liked about it is it's really like pitched in that middle class, liberal, arty, well educated sort of space, in that like Robert Pattinson character, he's like a museum creator. Their like flat is really tasteful. They've got like art everywhere. There's like books everywhere. Zendaya works in something kind of a bit creative and a bit corporate. It's never really specified, but it seems to be marketing-y, publishing-y adjacent. It's a businessy, but also sort of business where people make creative decisions, not just, sell things or move finance around.
Well, yeah, but it's, as I say, it's part of a lot of the comedy here comes from how uptight they are and how much they struggle to reconcile this genuinely dark thing that they suddenly have to talk about with the otherwise quite easy comforts of their lives.
And this need to like project stability and emotional connection and like emotional intelligence and be like well-adjusted people who don't do like crazy things.
Well, yeah, there's a plot thread where they are quite judgmental about a person they know who they see doing one thing that seems a bit extreme for them one time, and obviously that plays into the central metaphor, as does something that the Patterson character does towards the end and then doesn't quite go through with and immediately regrets. It's all very focused. I don't know, the aesthetic doesn't get in the way of the storytelling. It's very much just telling this one story in this very straightforward way. And as Alistair said, it's a tight 90 to 100 minutes. It does the business well. Yeah,
and it's just really well studied and really like well crafted. I think so. So yeah, I can strongly recommend this. Yeah, I'm glad it came together well, and hopefully this will be one of the remembered films of 2026. Did we make it to the end without spoiling?
I think we actually did.
Okay, cool.
I think we actually uttered the word.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's a... There you go. I can't keep it in any longer.
Okay, and lastly today, we'll be talking about Small Profits, a comedy drama on BBC, written and directed by Mackenzie Crook, about Michael Sleep, a man whose partner disappeared some years ago and who turns to the secrets of homunculi and alchemy to try and find out exactly where she's gone. Because this is a very down-to-earth, relatable drama, this involves him bringing back the homunculi in a bunch of jars in his shed. Comedy and surprisingly deep emotions progress from there. Alistair, we've both seen this. What did you think of it?
So again, I really liked this. I thought it was really good. And again, I really liked it because I thought the tone was just spot on. This is a good podcast episode for Alistair, tone enjoyer. From Project Hail Mary and the drama, and now onto this. This has another sort of tone that I like a lot. It's not something that I like one of my go-to, but when it's done well, it's done really well, which it's got this sort of languid pace and sort of folksy charm to it, in that it's very much about ordinary life, but it also has this sort of slightly strange edge to it, like with the whole homunculi thing that we'll come to. But this is very much from the creators of Detectorists. It's got Mackenzie Crook both creatively behind it and acting in it. But what I liked about it is you're very much that similar sort of tone. Like there's a lot of quite gentle folk music used in the soundtrack. Detectorists is very much located in ordinary people living ordinary lives. They may be slightly eccentric and colourful, but in a sort of lovable British way, but there's not anything like really like epic occurs. And then this is kind of that, but like tinged with a bit of magical realism that worked really, really well. And it's got some really funny moments and some very sweet moments, which again Detectorist has. It's got a lot of good emotion running through it. So yep, again, something I can strongly recommend.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this as well. I think it's got a lot of good, sincere emotion in it, as Alistair said. I think it's very sweet. It's got a very folklore, folktale vibe, which I think it sells quite well. It's this down-to-earth idea that this is just a story that's happening to a normal person, and it doesn't at any point try and get into the epic implications of it, or what the discovery of homunculi could mean for the economy. It's just about this one man and his feelings and what the magic world can do for him, or how the magic world can help him deal with it. And it never really threatens to be about anything other than that, and it's just very nice and relatable to watch, and you find yourself very quickly rooting for Michael Sleep. played very, very well by Piers Quigley, who's very, very good in this.
Yeah, no, he is great. Yeah, I enjoyed him in Detectorists a lot as well. But it's great to see like a show that's kind of built around him. He does a sort of, again, British eccentric quite well.
Yeah, it's very sweet, it's very sincere, and yet it has a very nicely pitched sense of humour. It's willing to make little jokes. It can poke fun at itself a little bit. It's never tediously po-faced, but again, it is always very sweet and sincere and clearly on the main character's side. As you say, it's got Piers Quigley as this sort of British eccentric, and then his neighbour as sort of the classic British busybody, the sort of other end of the British spectrum. But again, he's not an awful cackling villain, he's just a bit of a prick.
Yeah, it's quite well observed. There's a lot of people from archetypes that you'd recognise from reality, such as like his boss, played by Mackenzie Crook, who's just a bit of a Jobsworth and a bit of a micromanager. There's his catchphrase like, "Have you had your break yet? Go on your break." Yeah. The neighbour, who's just a bit like, "Oh, I don't like this eccentric guy. His hedge is a bit too big and his like house is a bit weird, isn't it? And like, can't you just like let him be in peace?" And they got that other neighbour who's just a bit of an oddball, who seems to be constantly like astroturfing her garden. So yeah, there's an interesting cast of British eccentrics, which again you'd expect from the creators of Detectorists.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good specificity, I think. It's never that person's just weird. They've always got a specific thing, which focuses it in quite nicely. There's a kid who just drives in circles around their cul-de-sac on a bike. That's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And his friend, his colleague he befriends at work, who again has her own sort of little... She's kind of sort of there to be the vaguely normal one, but she does have her own sort of enjoyable foibles as well, which make her something other than just the sort of character to have things explained to.
Yeah. It's well cast. I thought the whole cast is really, really good. Yes, Lauren Patel playing Casey. Yeah, she was really good. Like each character is a sort of like distinctly eccentric, sort of interesting person. I thought Michael Palin playing Michael Sleep's dad, Brian, was really, really good. I mean, I really like Michael Palin, obviously. Huge fan of Monty Python and a lot of like Michael Palin's work over the year. He's great in things like A Fish Called Wanda and things like that. And I kind of really thought he'd stopped acting. He must be like 80 or something now, maybe. Yeah, he's really good in this, like, just playing the British eccentric figure, the sort of people, again, Monty Python made fun of. He'd served in the British Army, I think, in like Egypt and places like that, where he's picked up arcane mystical knowledge that now like just resides in the attic of Michael Sleep's house.
He's in an old folks home, isn't he?
Yeah, and what I meant is where all his stuff is kind of at Michael's house. But yeah, anyway, I meant that the lore resides in the attic, and it's playing with that idea of like your parents had a life before they knew you, and it's all kind of just in like boxes and books in your attic. But what if up in there was like something really crazy, like the ability to divine the future?
Yeah, again, it's very nicely specific and underplayed. He's just a bloke who picked up some stuff. Yeah, I've got a few old trains, I've got my collection of stamps, and also the secret to summoning homunculi. Yeah, it's all in the loft somewhere. Yeah, again, it's very nice and relatable and specific, and feels very grounded in a sort of British dad archetype.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which Michael Palin plays really, really well. For fans of Monty Python, it's nice to see him out doing some acting and some comedy again. Obviously I do like his travel documentaries, but this was very, very good. Yeah, so it's one of those things, like, it's kind of really well done. Like each character is really like distinctive. Even people like the neighbour's wife, again, some of like got a sort of interesting, distinctively British personality. There's also the main character's brother-in-law, who is trying to get the house because he wants to sell it because he needs some money, and also then discovers there might be something else valuable in the house as well. I mean, there's actually quite a lot of different plot threads to this, considering it's only like 6 25-minute episodes.
It's well pitched. There's quite a few plots, and they all converge nicely towards the end. Yeah, the brother-in-law was Paul Kay. Nice to see him around playing a really obnoxious person, as he almost always does.
Yeah, he is good at it.
It's a nice show. I liked when the homunculi arrive. I liked the sort of stop-motion animation on them. It has a sort of textured realness. It doesn't feel too otherworldly in CGI. It doesn't look like weird and shiny. It looks like they are physical objects, but they exist in a sort of slightly different plane to the rest of the show. It's very effective, I think.
Yeah, it's quite uncanny. They deliberately so, like, again, being stop motion animation or whatever, they move in a kind of strange way and stuff, and the homunculi do look weird in a sort of appropriate way, which is one of the things I was like, this is a British TV show, and again, it's not like Doctor Who or something like that. They haven't like spent loads of money on this. Mackenzie Crook is a successful actor, and Detectorist was a big success, and he's clearly got a bit more to play with. Again, like, can hire people like Michael Palin, but they don't have oodles of money, and I was a bit like, I really hope these like homunculi don't look like a cheap puppet in a jar, something like that, on the sort of British TV budget. But they actually managed to do something quite creative that makes it kind of work really well.
Yeah, they just look a bit knobbly and weird, and it sort of makes people slightly shocked, confused reactions to them kind of work. And no, it's nice. It feels very organic, I guess, or it just fits into the sort of earthy, sort of relatable magic thing they're doing in this show. Yeah, it's a very, again, I think we sort of said this about the drama. It hangs together very well as a whole. I guess it's sort of what you said about tone. It does feel like a very cohesive show with a very cohesive vision, which has been executed very well.
Yeah, like each episode comes together really well. Like, it's just like tightly plotted. Like they're only like 25 minutes, and there's quite a few threads. A lot of time spent on like character development and stuff. The first episode focuses a lot on the more day-to-day things, like his brother-in-law wants the house. There's dispute over that. He's got problems at work. But then the first episode ends with him discovering the knowledge of summoning homunculi. The second episode ends with him actually summoning them, and so on. And then so it's quite tightly plotted. Each one ends in a bit of kind of like, ooh, that's exciting. What's going to happen next? Without being sort of needlessly like melodramatic or explosive.
Yeah, but it's quite slow and deliberate. Like, as you say, at the end of each episode, things advance a little bit. But, in some ways, there's 6 nearly half-hour episodes. There's like 3 hours of this. Arguably, in some ways, 3 hours is quite a lot of television for a man decides to make some homunculi in jars. He does it and then asks them a question. But because there's, as you say, so many other plots and character bits as well, it always feels very compelling.
Yeah, it's got that kind of, again, like languid tone of Detectorists, which makes it really enjoyable to watch, and that it unfolds quite slowly, which is kind of sort of relaxing and nice and warm and comforting, rather than something that like, a kind of like a thriller that moves very, very quickly, but is there to keep you like on edge and tense and things like that. And again, like Alistair, tone enjoyer, I do enjoy a thriller that does that really well, but I also enjoy this more relaxed and contemplative tone when done well.
Well, yeah, again, it knows what it is and it's comfortable in it and it's just doing a good job of it. Like, I consume a lot of media, both TV and comics. Those are the main things I tend to consume, which you can sort of tell that the writer has only got X number of minutes or X number of pages before the cancellation hammer drops. Whatever, they really want to do their story while they still can. And I like the fact that, Mackenzie Crook is chilling out a bit here and taking his time and just luxuriating in this tone. Hopefully he'll get a second season, but honestly, I was going to say there's a sort of cliffhanger, but it literally says to be continued on the screen at the end. Yeah. So there's definitely a cliffhanger. But, in some ways, if they never make a second season of this, I wouldn't feel, sad or cheated or like the story never finished. A weird thing to say, I guess, because mild implied spoiler, I suppose. The central mystery is not answered. There will be more show in order to answer the central mystery of where Clea has gone. That is all I'll say, but that is the case. So in some ways, maybe I should feel cheated, but I think the story feels so emotionally satisfying that if they never made any more, I would be happy enough with this, but if they made more, I will obviously watch it.
Well, that's because there's a character payoff at the end, which is why it feels emotionally satisfying in that, I don't want to spoil it too much, because it's not a lot of plot, I suppose. But although there's a lot of threads. Anyway, what they've got to the point at the end is a very satisfying point for that character. The character is clearly in one, like, bad place at the beginning, and then it has transitioned to a better place by the end through, lots of things, such as, like, making friends with some colleagues and standing up to his neighbour and all that sort of stuff. And he grows throughout the story. That's why it feels satisfying, even though they haven't resolved, like, the big, like, mystery question. But you invest in this character and he's gone on a journey and got to a place that feels satisfying. And that's like a saying, like, about even like things like Project Hail Mary, when the writers have thought, like, okay, what's the character implication for this? What's the emotional implication for this? Like, like this is what the science says. And it's fun in the book when people are like doing science in a sort of positive, let's discover something way. But they thought, like, well, what does the audience want? The audience wants, like, what does this mean for the character? And that's what this is putting front and center, that sense of like, well, where does the character go from this? And then even though the ending leaves a lot unresolved, again, to be continued, but it does feel like this character has reached a satisfactory place. So if there wasn't any more, then I can go around my life knowing that Michael Sleep is in a better place because of what he went through emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. As people said about all the mystery box shows in the 2000s, when there's nothing to the show other than the mystery, that's when the rage starts to spike, when the mystery is left annoyingly vague and unresolved. But there's enough character stuff going on here, as you say, that it still feels satisfying, which is what I believe the kids call good writing.
Yes, absolutely. And also it had a good, like, sense of place, but not a specific sense of place. I thought they, again, really captured a sense of, like, either, like, a small town or suburbs on the edge of a big city. I mean, it's purposely vague about where it is. And there's a kind of mix of characters. I guess it's sort of broadly middle class, I suppose. The Michael Sleep is a sort of slightly middle class eccentric. But he works in a sort of DIY, it's basically supposed to be B&Q, isn't it? But they can't use the brand, I suppose. But he works in, like, B&Q and goes to, like, sort of regular pub that feels like, it's not like a sort of complete rundown dive, but it's not a trendy craft beery place. It looks like any pub in any suburb anywhere in the country. And the cul-de-sac he lives on looks fairly normal middle class, and his neighbour has that little bit of an elevated working class, like, I've got a bit more money and now I'm like concerned about, my neighbour's hedge and whatever.
I liked how there's a couple of bits where we see inside the neighbour's house and his decor is sparse to the point of comedy. There is literally nothing there.
Yeah.
It is just like his kitchen. There's one scene where he's on the phone in the kitchen yelling at someone, and I like to assume this is a deliberate design decision rather than just, oh god, there's no money. But his kitchen is basically empty. Like, that man has no toaster.
Yeah. It was just quite good, considering also Michael Sleep's house is just full of boxes and stuff and like kind of eccentric things like old toys and stuff, which is a character point for that. But the thing is, like, I have totally been in houses like that, and I really noticed like it's quite subtle with the production design, and like it's one of those things like there are no books anywhere in the neighbour's house. You just know there aren't. He doesn't have a book anywhere.
Or seemingly anything else.
Or anything, yeah. And there's no like art. And the only like pictures on the wall are basically just like pictures of him and his wife, in the sense of like there's nothing creative about it. It's just like, well, I guess you put a picture of your wife on the wall from your wedding day. I mean, that's what you do, right? He's got no taste. He's got no culture. But he's very like concerned about, again, the neighbour. And he's got this like, polo shirt done up to the top and things like that. He's just very much a British type in the way that like Michael Sleep is a sort of slightly eccentric guy with a big beard who like collects old stuff and like potters around in his shed. Again, it's like a very eccentric type, very British type. And Mackenzie Crook and the people involved are really good at like character studies or kind of specifically British people. I mean, Detectorist was like this as well. Suppose the main characters, there's like the sort of hippie woman who lives on a barge and things like that. They're British types.
Yeah, the one thing this did make me do is think, okay, it's time to finally watch Detectorist, isn't it? I really should finally get around to doing that.
Have you not seen it?
Not a single moment.
That was good.
All right, I've heard that. But yeah, having watched and really enjoyed this, I should probably, we were in the pub last night having a conversation of all the TV shows we should one day get around to watching, and Detectorists is very much on the pile, but after watching Small Profits, it may have advanced a few stages up the pile. We'll see.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you did like Detectorists...
Oh, is there more?
No, well then go see Small Profits. So yeah. Well, not go see. Well, go see as in go to your living room and watch it live.
Go to your television now.
Exactly, after you've been to see Project Hail Mary and the drama. But no, this is lovingly eccentric British TV, but really, really good and really emotionally satisfying.
Yes, I never really get that far into the corporate politics of the world because what's the point? Who cares what I think? But if the BBC is going to continue making television, it does kind of feel like this is the sort of thing they really should be making. It's good stuff.
That's all we have time for today. If you have enjoyed this episode of Moderate Fantasy Violence, then please visit our website, moderatefantasyviolence.com, where you can find other episodes of the podcast and written pieces by Nick and myself. Please also leave us a review in your podcatcher of choice to help other people find out about the show.
And if you want to learn new up-to-the-date things, mostly just when a new episode comes out, but sometimes other things, you can follow us on Blue Sky and Instagram as Moderate Fantasy Violence. And you can also follow me on social media as nickbryan.com on Blue Sky or nickbryan.com with the word dot on Instagram, where you'll mostly hear me, you'll see lots of recent-ish posts about my Courier Z Volume 2 Kickstarter, which has just finished and went very, very well. Thank you to anyone listening to this who backed. And soon enough, I'm sure I'll start talking about the next Kickstarter. And maybe my wedding a bit, you never know.
And you can also get more from me on social media. I'm Alistair Ball, and you can search for Alistair Ball on Blue Sky, Instagram or TikTok. You can also find more of my writing at redtrainblog.com or my theatre reviews at everythingtheatre.com, or sign up to my newsletter by going to the Linktree link in any of the above social media accounts. And then you can come back here in 2 weeks' time for the next episode, when we will be discussing Absolute Wonder Woman, a new run of Wonder Woman comics from the same line as Absolute Batman that we discussed earlier. And we'll also be discussing Sentimental Value, which was nominated for Best Picture this year, and our complete rundown of the Oscar films. Join us in 2 weeks' time to find out what we made of those stories. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.